finding the buyers is the part that actually helps you get a deal across the closing line, because you can secure a deal. You can do all the things that we've talked about. You can put your rehab estimates. You can work on finding an ARV. You can walk the property. You can have the conversation, get the property under contract. But now what? Now you have to assign the property. Now you have to find somebody, another investor, that's going to see the value in the property that you've got under contract, and you can make some money.
The DealMachine REI podcast. Everything you need to know to get started in real estate investing.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast, where our mission is to give you everything you need to know step by step on how to get into real estate investing. So my name is David Lecco, and my co-host is Ryan Haywood. This episode is specifically for our wholesalers out there. And so if you don't know, wholesaling means you get a property that is typically off market, you get it under contract yourself, and then you pass it off to an investor who has money, and they pay you for the privilege of closing on this really amazing rental property or type of investment property that needs work. You got it at such a great price, they're going to pay you maybe 20 grand for the privilege of them buying it. And so I've taken down 9 rentals. I've gone direct to seller. I've done all the conversations. I've found really amazing deals. And I have 2 stories I'm going to share where I almost wholesale it, but I just kept them myself. Ryan's done almost 300 of these type of wholesale deals. And so we're really going to lean on him. And I'm curious, Ryan, how did you find your first buyer when you did that it's a 30-day challenge, but you found the first deal in your first 14 days? Like, where did you go from there?
Yeah, so we can call it the 14-day wholesaling challenge. That's a new challenge.
Yeah, that was your
we're
version
gonna do.
of it.
Yeah, we're going to make an expedited version of the 30-day, and we're going to call it the 14-day challenge. Can you do a deal as fast as Ryan can? The answer is yes, you could. Sometimes it takes a while. So we found our very first buyer was actually, we shared it on a Facebook marketplace page, but a realtor was the first person that brought a buyer to the table. They seen this deal. They had a buyer that was interested, and they brought the buyer to the table. So it was a twofold way of finding it. We posted it on Instagram or marketplace, and then a realtor is the one that actually brought a buyer to the table.
Wow. How did this realtor even know that you had this property under contract?
They had seen it on Facebook. So obviously, being in St. Joe, friends with a lot of different people. So we posted it in marketplace, but I also shared it from my personal Facebook page, and somebody had seen it and just tagged another realtor in it. And then that realtor reached out and said, I have a buyer that's interested in that specific area. Can we come and take a look at it? And so that was how we did it. We met them there, the realtor and the investor. We met them on site. They walked the property together. I did not know, again, this was so early in my journey that I didn't know what to even do on this appointment. So I just kind of stood back and let them walk the property. I walked through it with them. They didn't really ask me any questions. It was pretty self-explanatory, the property itself. It was a decent property. It had some fire damage, but the investor knew well enough to be able to tell what he was going to spend in the rehab. And yeah, so that's what ended up happening. And after they left the appointment, they did not make an offer right at the beginning or at the end of that appointment, which made me nervous, because I'm like, man, they don't want it. But it was like the next day they came back and said, hey, they'd like to submit their offer at, I'm wanting to think they said like 8,000. And we quickly just said I think 8,000 was what we had it under contract for. So we just quickly said, this has to be no less than 18,000. That is our bottom dollar. And they said, yeah, we'll do it. That was that. And then it was kind of like, again, I was so nervous about, okay, now what? Now what do I do? Because I had it under contract. I got a buyer ready. And then there's a realtor involved. And so I just explained to her, I said, hey, this is an assignment. I already have an assignment contract prepared. is it okay if we use my paperwork for this transaction? And she was cool with it. She understood what the assignment process was. And so she supported it. She actually looked over our contract and said, no, this is totally fine. And then, yeah, off to the races.
Did the realtor even take a fee?
She actually got a fee. Her fee actually came from the investor. The investor paid her like a finder's fee for finding the deal. So it was
she was already working with an investor.
Yep.
So the investor actually just paid her a fee. You don't even know what it was because you weren't involved. Yeah. Okay.
It was a finder's fee for her directly from him.
Got it. So one of these really great avenues that you used was Facebook Marketplace. Mm-hmm. It is legal. This is an important distinction about what makes wholesaling legal, by the way, because realtors advertise properties that are for sale, and they can do that because they are licensed to do so. If you're not a realtor, you can't advertise somebody else's property unless you have an equitable interest in the property yourself. That's why you can advertise your own property and list your own property for sale. But if you have the property under contract, you now have an equitable interest in that property, which is why you have to have the property under contract, and then you can post it on Facebook Marketplace exactly like you did.
Yeah, no marketing prior to having the signature. Mm-hmm. That is the distinction. So obviously making sure you get it under contract, have that dotted line signed, and then you
had a bunch of pictures taken, right? You had a bunch of pictures.
We had like 8 pictures. I always say get a picture per room and a picture of each of there is a theory of too many pictures is overwhelming. Mm-hmm. If you get a file full of 72 pictures, but there's only 5 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, like you really get a picture of each room unless there's something like really bad with the property. And then obviously don't hide it. Just take pictures of it so that they see, hey, this is an issue. Oh, this foundation wall is collapsed. Take a picture of that so that that's addressed, that's known. Mm-hmm. But don't go overboard.
Got it. Okay. Well, where'd you find your next buyer for your next deal?
The next buyer, so in part of the 30-day challenge, there was a talking to people and letting people know what you do. And so we had started sharing several days into this journey. Hey, this is what we were doing. We were telling our family, we were telling our friends. And it was a conversation with one of our friends. And she said, actually, my uncle just started buying real estate properties in St. Joe, and he might be interested. And so I said, cool. Can you start an introduction? And so she had connected her uncle to me, and we had talked and explained everything. And I sent him a couple deals that we then had under contract, and he, did his deal analysis on them, put both of them under contract, took those 2 deals down. That was the next 2. After I did the first one in the 30-day or 14-day challenge, the next transaction I did was 2 deals to 1 buyer simultaneously closed. Mm-hmm. And from there, he had even mentioned, actually, I've got another friend that is interested in getting started in real estate. I'm going to connect the 2 of you. And then it just started evolving. We started putting stuff on Instagram to kind of document the journey. But our first 3 buyers, one was a realtor's referral. The next one was a referral from a friend. And then the referral after that was another referral from another investor. So the word just started spreading through who we were working with. And that's how initially, and we still to this day, there's one of the investors that's of that original 3 that still buys from us.
So when you started looking for a property, you did not have a buyer's list?
No, I had nothing. I had no buyer's list. I had nothing.
You started by finding a great deal.
Found a great deal first, and then found an investor to buy it.
Amazing. Okay. How big's your buyer's list now?
We have a large buyer's list, but there's let's just be honest with what we actually do, we probably have a total of 10 buyers that we focus on the most. Like,
Okay.
we've got a large buyers list, but there's some people on that buyers list that are just, I would say they're just along for the ride. They're just there to see the deal, but haven't bought anything. We'll still send out marketing emails to a list through MailChimp, but we have about 10 investors that are repeat buyers.
Okay, got it. That makes sense, right? The Pareto principle says, the 80-20 principle, like 80% of your deals are going to get bought by 20% of your buyers.
Correct.
And those are just like the heavy hitters.
Yep.
Do you give them any special treatment, or do you actually just send the same deal to all of your buyers without giving special treatment?
When I started that first deal, there was no special treatment involved at all. It was just, here's the deal. This is what it was. And I should have stuck with that. But I had a mindset of, I'm trying to establish a relationship with some of these people. So I started to kind of scale back a little bit on the assignment fees. And I had one guy that bought 16 properties from me in my first year. And for him, I just agreed that I would reduce my assignment fee because he was buying pretty much everything that I was bringing to him. We agreed to have a reduced assignment fee. Now, if I could do it all over again, I would just stick to the base assignment fee was consistent for everyone, because it's one of those things I didn't know until I knew. But like, one of the very first things that I fixed in my journey, 2 years in, was raising my assignment fee back up, because I had gotten to a point where I was just comfortable and complacent accepting low assignment fees. Like, some of them were even under 5,000. But that was a point that I'm like, man, I could literally do less deals and make more if I would just bring my assignment fee back up. Because I was still analyzing the deals with a $5,000 to $10,000 assignment fee, but then I would go under that to build relationships with a buyer that would be consistent. So in reality, I should have kept the assignment fee as the assignment fee. My base would have been 5,000 no matter what, because that's what I ran the numbers on. If I had done that, I would have been able to work a little bit less and not have to do as many deals to do the same amount of money.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've heard a lot of times the advice that you don't want to be the employee of the cash buyer.
No.
And when you do special treatment, you end up kind of becoming an employee, which is what everyone did, started wholesaling to avoid becoming an employee and to work for yourself. And so I've seen when people can actually just treat everyone the same way, that allows you to stay and operate as an independent wholesaler and to actually charge, probably the highest assignment fee possible.
Yeah, 100%. And I wish I don't regret. I could say I wish I could go back and do it over and do it the right way, but I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I hadn't learned all these lessons. I wouldn't be able to have this call and say, hey, don't do this because I did this. So I hope that helps somebody. Hey, stick with your numbers. Like, you ran the numbers, you did the formula, you put the rehab budget idea together. Like, just stick with that. Be consistent with that and be confident in what you're presenting in terms of the numbers. Don't deviate. Don't go lower unless it's like you have to get the deal to close. Sometimes that's the case where, look, nobody's interested in the deal with the way the numbers are. You can't find a buyer the way that the numbers on. So what are the controllables? Well, you can control how much your assignment fee is. That's absolute. So the other part of it is the renegotiation, with going back and trying to renegotiate a deal. But to me, it was always like, am I charging too much? Is my assignment fee causing this to not be a deal for somebody? So that's always the first thing that I would evaluate is, where's my assignment fee in this? Does this affect the way that this deal is being looked at? And it's the only real controllable that I had, because even going back and renegotiating a contract, the seller could say, no, I'm not going to do that. So there are times where dropping that assignment fee becomes a necessity, depending on if you can find a buyer or not.
I actually almost wholesaled a deal twice. And what I did was I found it. It was on this street called Brookside Avenue. It was like a 3-2 owned by a church in a pretty like rough area. And I got that thing under contract for $21,000, I believe. And then I was really unsure if it would be a great rental property or not for me, since I had never bought in that area before. So I was like, why don't I wholesale it? It'd be a great experience to wholesale it too. And I was like, well, the best spot I could find a buyer. Well, I wasn't as smart as you. I didn't put it on Facebook Marketplace. I think that's a great strategy. What I did is I Googled We Buy Houses Indianapolis, and then I found the top 3 results. And I was like, why don't I just ask these guys if they'd want to partner on this deal with me? And so I ended up hitting up Simple Wholesaling. Brett Snodgrass said yes. So if you guys need to find a buyer, Facebook Marketplace ain't working for you, you could always Google We Buy Houses, your city, and that person probably wants to partner on the deal with you. Has anyone ever done that with you, Ryan?
I have. In the course of the last 2 years, we have had so many other wholesalers bringing us deals.
Amazing.
In fact, this month, I'm saying last month, like it's almost over, but this month, one of the deals that we've closed was a deal that was brought to us from another wholesaler. And the deal was a very good deal. We were able to find a buyer within less than 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I had a consistent buyer that was looking for more properties, and the numbers all made sense, and they went and walked through it with us. They agreed to the assignment price, and that wholesaler's like, man, that was the fastest I've ever done a deal. And I'm like, that's the benefit of working with somebody that's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you got to partner with somebody with a good deal. Like,
yeah,
he brought the deal to me. Hey, this is a deal. Can you help me put a number together? I put the number together. We got it under contract. What I do see, and I will kind of throw a little bit of caution out there to some people, taking and doing a JV deal with a bad deal is only going to make the deal worse. Because I've also seen other investors or other wholesalers bring me a deal that they don't initially tell me they're JV'd already with somebody. So this has happened. This last week, somebody sent me, hey, I've got 2 properties in St. Joe. Would you be interested in doing a JV? And I'm like, yeah, tell me the numbers. And they're like, this neighborhood ARV at most would be like $70,000 for this house at most. Great. It's not a great part of town. Like, the properties were, I'm looking at the pictures. I'm like, well, that's easily a $50,000 to $55,000 renovation. I'm like, what's the contract price? $29,000. I'm like, this is not a good deal. And like, I always assume, like, our market is so different than, like, we're close to Kansas City, and people just kind of assume the ARVs in Kansas City are the same as what they are here. And they're so different, like so dramatically different. And so I just said, I'm like, look, the rehab is going to be 55. The ARV is about 70. I don't see 29 being a price. Do you have room to go down on either the assignment fee, or can we renegotiate this contract? And they're like, well, we can't renegotiate the contract because we're JV'd with another investor. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, so this was a JV upon a JV upon another JV.
Yeah, don't
and
do
the
that.
number just kept going up. I'm like,
yeah,
it's no longer a deal for anyone.
So yeah, instead of trying to JV with everybody out there, you don't want to do that. I would say, find, if you're going to go the route of you want a JV, do the Google, see who comes up at the top of the list. They're probably the best in the market. So I would just pick that one person. They'll tell you, hey, we got to renegotiate this. And that's what happened with me. Simple Wholesaling was like, hey, I'm kind of at 14 grand. So can you go back and renegotiate? And then I said, yes. I went back, renegotiated. The deal fell through because the church had it with a mortgage on their actual church also, and the bank wouldn't release the property separately. So we didn't do the deal, but that was how I almost wholesale the property one time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that squatting up is absolutely the way to go.
So,
if you've got a deal, definitely, like, if you don't have buyers, go to people that do. Like, I'm always happy if somebody brings a deal that's a good deal, always happy to go for it.
Yeah. Now, did you have like a agreement for JVing? Did you write it down to say like, hey, we'll do this split?
Definitely got to have that. Like,
what are the components of that agreement?
Essentially, the idea of the JV agreement is that you are splitting, that you're a 50-50 and partner on the assignment fee. And really, like, I've had people come to me and they're like, hey, would you do 25% finder's fee? I'm like, nope, because I've worked for 3 years building the relationships with all my buyers. The last thing I'm going to do is give them a deal that's not mine and not make a reasonable profit on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that, yeah, I could sell them this deal, but I also know that in a week I'm going to have another deal for them,
Mm-hmm.
and I want them to buy mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I said it hard and fast. It's 50%. I've got a component that you need, and that's a buyer for your
Mm-hmm.
deal. And that's just as important. That's why this is a topic on our podcast. It's an important component to an assignment. You are not assigning anything unless you have an end buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So the value for an end buyer, especially on a JV deal, is only fair to say 50-50, because that's
Mm-hmm.
essentially, that's the process in and of itself. Find a property, assign a property.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So anytime somebody wants to come and say, hey, less than 50%, it doesn't make sense, because you're doing half of the work, or you're providing the second half of the value in this transaction. So it's important to have that assignment or that JV contract before you even send that to any of your buyers, because there's too many times I've experienced that we've locked up a deal with an investor. They closed on it. I got like $500. I'm like, hey, what's this $500? They're like, that's the finder's fee. I'm like, what was the assignment on this? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
we were at 10,000. I'm like, well, then I should be at 5. No, it was only a 500. Well, nobody had that in the contract. So
Yeah.
I was the one left holding a bag of $500 versus the 95 that they got.
Mm-hmm. And I'll take a bag of $500 any day. Now, I'm curious. We've actually covered 4 ways to find buyers. I'm wondering how many we could get to. The first one was post on Facebook Marketplace. The second one was get a referral from an agent. That was kind of a combo for you.
Mm-hmm.
The third one was you kind of shared on social media that you were doing this challenge and a relative wanted to buy properties. So you got
Mm-hmm.
introduced. And then the fourth way is Googling We Buy Houses in your city and then reaching out to one of those top wholesalers to actually JV with them. Now,
Mm-hmm.
are there any other ways that you personally have found buyers?
Yes. One of the golden nuggets, this might be the golden nugget of this episode, is a title company.
Really?
Go to a title
Walk
company.
me through that.
Yeah.
Any title company or just a specific
Well,
one?
you want to find a title company that's doing, wholesale transactions. Is obviously, you got to vet the
A lot
the
of title companies they just do retail transactions. So
correct.
You could go to a real estate meetup and ask who people use for their wholesale deals, and then ask that title company.
Yes, find out the title company that does the wholesale deals,
Mm-hmm.
and or even title companies that work with investors. Like, do you ever do transactions with investors? Yes. Could you share with me? I have a couple properties that I want to sell. Could you share with me a few of the investors that are buying properties in the area? And honestly, I probably would not be able to get this done without having rapport built with the title company. So I would not recommend this being like the first thing you do. I would say it's best to build a little bit of rapport, do a couple deals with the title company, get them comfortable with who you are and what deals you're doing, build the rapport, and then say, hey, we're trying to do this often. I would love to be able to find a few more people in the area that are buying. Do you have contact to any other investors? And that has provided us with 3 new buyers that are consistent buyers to our list. Mm-hmm. So all of these things, like, they were not in the 30-day wholesaling challenge. They are all important, but it's important to know when to do certain things. If this is your first deal, I don't know that you want to go to the title company and say, hey, do you have a buyer for this deal? I don't know that that's going to win you any kind of favor. A, they don't know who you are. B, they don't know what kind of business person you are. But the more you establish like yourself with them, the more they're going to be willing to help you. because that's bringing them business.
Mm-hmm.
So they were very happy to share that information with us. They gave us the contact information for a couple of the top buyers, and that was a very, very fruitful adventure. The other thing is finding cash buyers in your zip codes, and that was part of the wholesaling challenge, was pulling a list of all the cash transactions in your zip code, and then skip tracing all those, cold calling all those, and asking them, are you interested in buying other properties in this market?
Yes. Now, I've got a list here from a little group that I'm in where people say what hedge funds or iBuyers they sell to. So I want to rattle off some of those names as well, just in case somebody... Now, hedge funds don't buy in every single market, but they're fairly widespread across regions. So I wanted to read these to you. SFR3 is one. I know they buy in Indianapolis, and they have reps that you can contact that'll look at your deal and just buy it. Like, they want to buy houses. So Google some of these names to see if they're buying in your region. I've got Conrex and Vinebrook. Also, Wedgwood is a big one. And people sell properties straight to Open Door. They'll get it under contract, and then they'll just wholesale it to Open Door.
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed any iBuyers? And an iBuyer is like a newer term that means they're just making offers based on straight data. Like, they don't even go, I don't think, into the house. And they're very big and they're funded. Like Open Door, for example, would be an iBuyer.
We do not have any iBuyers in our market.
Okay.
Too small.
How about any hedge funds?
None.
Okay. So I see SFR3 and Open Door on here quite a bit. There's a few I haven't heard of, but I'll go ahead and mention them. It looks like Tiber Capital, Tiber, and somebody called Open House. I'm not sure if that was a mistake or if there's actually a hedge fund called Open House, but those are some of the ones that I'll mention to put in your arsenal, is look up if there's any hedge funds or iBuyers.
Yep, absolutely. So how many is that? Do we got other ways? Instagram.
Instagram. So we're at 6 now. I would say Instagram would be 7. Have you found a buyer via Instagram?
We've found a lot of buyers from Instagram. Obviously, it takes time to build your following. Like, that isn't something that happens overnight. If you're just posting deals and only have like 60 family members as your following, then that's going to be your next project, is to try to grow your following to be able to, so other people can see those deals. But we have found several people that are following us that are like, man, I would love deals with those types of numbers. And we have done assignments with people out of state that literally found us through social media.
Amazing. 7. It's probably hard to do though when you're brand new and you haven't done a deal yet, right?
We found actually in our first, this was July of 2020. That was our first full year doing not even our first, in our first 6 months of doing wholesale. And that was the very first, the buyer that bought 16 properties from me year one came from Instagram.
Oh, wow. The buyer that bought 16 properties from you. So
yep.
You can do it early, but yeah. Okay, great. That's number 7. Any other ways of finding buyers?
Yeah, talk to your friends. Like, the art of talking and letting people know what you're doing is super valuable. We have a couple of our very close friends that have seen what we've been doing with our rental portfolio, and they're like, man, I want to get into that. And to me, I'm like, well, let me help you. Like, I've got this many doors, I've got this much cash flow, and this is our business model, is to find investment properties for other investors. So if you're looking to get involved and you're wanting to make passive income, let me help you find a deal. So, talking to your friends and family about real estate, sharing your journey with other people. You don't know, there's tons of people out there that are looking for another way to create passive income, and maybe in that position where they also, maybe they want to retire, maybe they want to just create passive income on the side of their 9-to-5 job. But those are potential buyers for you. They they're looking for something that you have access to. So finding discounted properties in your market, simply from just telling your friends, this is what I'm doing, and give them examples, like show them, hey, this property here. I've always been an advocate of like keeping track of your deals. Don't just wholesale it and then be like, I'm done. You can, there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I've gone back after I've wholesaled a property and like looked at the progress of it being fixed up. And then I'll go and ask that buyer, I'm like, hey, that house looks fantastic. Do you mind if I share that on my Instagram and show the before and after? And they're like, no, that's great. So by doing that, that's showing people, hey, here's some before and after of what other investors have done with their project. Find out the numbers. Hey, is that one rented now? How much is it rented for? Okay. Can I share that information with some of my other investors? And that just gives you more firepower to find other buyers. Proof and finding when you're wanting to present deals to people, having numbers wins favor. Like if they can see, okay, if I put in $50,000 into this and it's worth $90,000 when it's done, but then it rents for $995 a month, Section 8, you show that to them, and it's like that is good value. Versus, hey, this house is $15,000. You might need like $25,000 to fix it up. It might rent for this.
Yeah.
What is more powerful? What argument, what presentation is more powerful? So use your experience that these other people are getting from buying from you. Use their experience to help sell more of your deals. You put the numbers together. You go back and, hey, can I take pictures of your finished product to kind of share with our other investors? That is building a portfolio of investment properties and success stories that you can share on Instagram. You can share it with your friends, and they can actually see. Sometimes the not being able to see it, like what does that look like? How does this, okay, buying a property and then what? By being able to show them the whole picture can get them to say, okay, yeah, I think I want to do this. And then you just found another buyer.
And I think that's a really good number 8, 7 actually. But for us to wrap up, the 8th thing I wanted to show you was Investor Lift. It's a marketplace for actually buying and selling properties as an option as well. Yep. And so to recap everything that we covered, we had 1, Facebook Marketplace, 2, Realtor. I love that you actually had a story and how the actual transaction went, how they got paid. Then we talked about looking for Googling We Buy Houses in your city and then finding somebody that is showing up at the top result and asking them if they want to partner on the deal with you. We talked about Instagram. We talked about Investor Lift platform, and we talked about
title company.
We talked about, getting like just talking with your friends and family, and then they gave you a referral that ended up buying some of your deals.
Pulling a list of cash transactions in your zip code and then skip, trace, and call them.
And you can get a list of cash transactions from a number of places. You may be able to get it from your title company or the county. I know in DealMachine List Builder, you can actually find a list of cash transactions. So that could be an option for you as well.
Yeah. And since you brought it up, that's also how you can skip trace them.
Yeah, of course. Inside of DealMachine,
you just hit skip trace. Bam.
Yeah. So there's 8 ways for you guys to find cash buyers. We'd love to hear your favorite way. I'd love it if Ryan told me next time, hey, I got a DM from like 4 people that said they didn't know, about getting a list of cash buyers was so easy. Just message Heritage Home Investments on Instagram. And then my Instagram is DLeco. And Ryan, is there anything else you'd want to add in before we wrap it up?
Very early in the journey, this was the most daunting task of wholesale, was finding a buyer. And I went to a real estate meetup, and the guy that was presenting was a very known wholesaling individual. And after the meetup, I went to him. I'm like, "How do you find buyers?" And he said, "That's the easiest part." But then that was all he said to me, and I'm just like, that didn't help at all. I got in the car all the way home. I'm like, he said it was the easiest part, but he didn't tell me how.
once you have an amazing deal, if you post it on Facebook Marketplace and it's actually a good deal, buyers will see it. Buyers will contact you, right? That's what he meant by that.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. It is not as daunting as you think it is. And absolutely what you just said. If it's a good deal, the buyers will come.
Amazing. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Next time, we're going to be talking about how to present these deals to buyers, finding the right title company we touched on today. And we're going to talk about a few more topics like wholesaling professionally and single family home investing during each market cycle. So get ready. We can't wait to see you guys and hear you guys and see your DMs. We really appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Deal Machine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.